Hello, kia ora, and welcome to the Creative Matters podcast, where we have inspiring conversations with artists from Aotearoa, New Zealand. I'm your host, Mandy Jakic. This is episode 100 of the Creative Matters podcast. I can't believe it's got to 100. It seems like yesterday that I recorded my very first episode. So if you've been with me for the long haul, thank you so much. And if you're a new listener, a very big warm welcome. And I hope you can be here for the next 100 episodes. So in episode 100, I'm speaking with Jamie Chapman. Jamie is a painter based in Tāmaki Makaurau, Auckland. He was born in the United Kingdom and immigrated with his family to New Zealand when he was 2 years old, settling and growing up in Whangarei. Jamie talks about his figurative oil paintings and how they have evolved over the years into different series of portrait works. He talks about how he likes to shift it up and challenge himself to loosen up in his painting process, partly because he doesn't like to get bored, and partly because he enjoys exploring new ideas and techniques. He loves to surprise himself and the viewers of his work, and he likes the idea that people coming to his shows might be wondering what they will see from him this time. Jamie is passionate about paint as a medium and the process of painting. He takes us through his different painting approaches and talks about the magic he feels when leaving his own paint marks in his work. We discuss his side hustle business, The Picture Hanger, where he curates and hangs work for galleries and private clients, which he finds inspiring and a good way to get out of the studio and interact with other art lovers. Jamie shows his work at Fernanda Gallery in Auckland and Boyd Dunlop Gallery in Napier. Morena, Jamie.
Kia ora, Mandy.
How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Nice to be out in Muriwai.
Yeah, nice to have you here. It's very exciting. I'm looking forward to hearing all about your amazing painting practice.
Thanks.
You were born in the UK, and lucky for us, you came out to Aotearoa, New Zealand, when you were 2.
Yeah.
And you settled in Whangarei, is that right?
Yeah, we moved there when I was 2, and my dad's brother and his partner had come over, and so we moved to join them. And I'm glad we did, because I really enjoyed growing from Whangarei and having the kind of outside lifestyle.
Yeah, it's a nice spot, and it's nice and close to lots of beautiful East Coast beaches.
Yeah, I love the East Coast beaches.
Yeah, they're so great, aren't they?
A bit calmer than the West Coast ones.
Yeah, we love Muriwai, but we often go for calmness to the other coast.
Yeah.
So what were you like growing up, Jamie? Were you a creative child, and had you just kind of discovered your love of painting?
I always think about that. I think every kid draws, and it's just that you learn whether a drawing's right or not, so you don't continue. Like, I remember I used to draw all the time, and I had a South Korean friend that came over as an exchange student, and he was amazing at drawing. And I was watching him, this is at primary school, and he's just drawing and erasing and drawing and erasing. And I was thinking, this guy is so good at drawing. Why does he keep rubbing it out? And I asked him, and he said, it's not right. And I kind of had this moment where I was like, paint, they can be not right. Drawings can be right or wrong. So I kind of started applying that to my own drawing. I started, instead of drawing out of my head, just copying things. I was never a good sleeper. So I'd be up till like 2 a.m. as a kid, just drawing on my floor.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And were you drawing portraits or faces at that time, or was it more
just copying things around me, cartoons or anything I could get my hands on?
And were you doing that same process of drawing, erasing until you reached perfection?
Yeah, it's like a virus. Yeah, I did. And then I did that all the way through intermediate. And then in high school, I went on to do printmaking because it was a better translation from drawing. And so we had pretty good art class. We had Miss Fleming shed letters in the lunchtimes, and we'd all sit around and probably just mostly talk while we're drawing, not paying as much attention, but it's that space of just making.
That sort of first positive community of artists, I guess.
Yeah. I was lucky all my friends were art room people, which was a coincidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. And was that Whangarei boys?
Whangarei boys, yeah. Yeah. And then I would skip some classes to go to art class. I just enjoyed being in there. And we had, in the 7th form, we had a special room just for the 7th formers. So we'd be in there with the printing press, making printings, doing our boards. And in the 7th form year, we had Chris Wilkie come down because Miss Fleming had maternity leave. And he was an artist, like quite an old school raw artist. Like he'd disappear off into the bush and come back with materials for painting. And he just said to us, "What are you boys doing at the end of the year? What art schools have you looked at?" And I was like, "What? What do you mean art schools?" So he was like, "Okay, I'm hiring the van. We're taking you guys down." And then, yeah, a few of us ended up enrolling at Whitecliffe.
How amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. I didn't know that you could be an artist at that
Isn't
point.
that incredible?
Yeah.
And that might not have come from your parents. It was good to have sort of an outsider coming in and influencing you like that.
Yeah, definitely. It was, I always knew I'd do something with my hands, but I didn't know I could do it with art.
That is amazing. And yet again, another great story of a teacher, helping you to carve your path.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely led me on. He even wrote my recommendation letter and helped me write my application to Whitecliffe. So, yeah, it was definitely helpful.
That's amazing. So when you had made that decision to go to Whitecliffe, had you thought about what kind of practice you were hoping for?
I, at that time, was really just drawing. Whitecliffe, luckily, you go into the first year and you learn figurative drawing, and they give you some basic skills. I just kind of was still in a skill system almost, doing jumping through all the hoops. And then my last class of the year was printmaking. And so I did I can't remember what I made, but I ended up painting on it at the end, painted over top of it. And it was the last class of the whole year. And I was like, oh, I should have been painting this whole time. So,
really?
Yeah. But I'd already decided at that point I needed to have a break and go traveling because it felt like I was still in high school almost.
Yeah. You do need a break at that age, I think. So you went off to Europe?
Yep, went to Europe. Didn't really do much over there. Did a little bit of traveling and looking at art. But then I kind of thought I actually ran out of money, which didn't help, but came home and started working. Worked for 3 or 4 years, and then I kind of got to the point where I was painting at home, teaching myself how to paint. And that was, I had got quite good technically at making it look like a picture. And then I was just still making them and people were buying them, and that's kind of gratifying, but it was boring beyond the technical making of the work. And so I thought, I'm sad in my job because it's not what I want to do. And I'm sad in my art because it's not what I want to do. I need to go back and study and progress somewhere.
You joined Elam, so you applied for Elam.
Yep.
And got in.
I chose Elam because it was conceptual, which in retrospect was a strange choice because painting and Elam sometimes are at loggerheads.
Why is that?
I think it's sort of seen as like old hat, maybe. It's not so much when you get into postgrad because they have to, respect your decision to use that. But yeah, constantly you're getting the is this, do you want to do photography? Would it be better to do this in video? And kind of at the end of my master's, I understood what they were saying.
Do you think that was helpful for your practice to kind of go into that conceptual realm slightly?
It I learned a lot. It definitely helped. I'm pretty stubborn, so I always push against what I'm being told, though. So that probably slowed down the process for me of getting there.
And was your work quite representational still at that point?
Yeah, definitely. Very. Yeah. All through the whole program, even through my honours and masters. Yeah.
And can you tell us about what you were making, what your paintings were like?
Honours was a little bit closer to what I do now. I was kind of chewing through images in the media, things that are become... You see an image so much that it kind of becomes an archetype for an idea. Like, you see Trump's face, and you don't actually look at Trump as a person. It's kind of like a symbol. So, yeah, painting these things was a way to slow it down for me, to look at it and to chew through the idea. But then there was also the picture, because I was painting pictures at that point rather than paintings. It was more about the image.
What do you mean by painting pictures?
Sort of like drawing. When my drawing as a kid, I was drawing pictures, and I'd taken that into painting. So I was painting pictures instead of using paint. Painting your drawings as a medium.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're like colouring in with paint almost.
Yeah, I do have that in my head sometimes. I'm like, are you colouring in? When I'm painting, I'm sitting in the studio. Make sure you're not colouring in. Because I got to the end of my master's. I was doing these really cinematic photographic images on large scale. And when I finished, I had this idea of, if I blew this photo up that I made to make this painting, is the painting doing anything that the photo wouldn't be doing if they were side by side? So that was the kind of question mark I left.
And what did you decide? What was your answer?
I carried on that track for a little while, just to play it out. And then I decided to start experimenting, I guess. Yeah, it took maybe 3 years after Elam for it all to sink in.
Well, it feels like that was just an important part of your sort of artistic journey in some ways, that you started there and really sort of honed your skills in that kind of more representational work, perhaps.
Yeah, it turned into more of a tool for my toolbox, having the skill to make those really realistic paintings. I mean, I can whip it out every now and then if I need it for an image, but yeah.
So just back to those paintings and what you're saying about making the drawing a painting. Did you go from there and not actually drawing, and were you just painting straight onto canvas to create the image?
I drew up a basic drawing, but then I paint from my image that I like. If I was taking a photo, I'd paint from that photo. And because I'm so close to the image, I'm painting color rather than like repeating a color, instead of painting, say, a nose. Because if you think you're painting a nose, it's not going to look like a nose. You're painting the colors, like you might have a little bit of purple on the edge, and then if you looked at that as a nose on a whole, it wouldn't look. You'd be like, there's not purple on my nose, but that light's purple. So that was a way for me to make the structure work.
And you use that approach for your more realistic paintings.
Yeah.
That just seems amazing to me. And then obviously the purple came out, didn't it? Because it was more sort of representing the actual colours.
Yeah. I still use that same way of painting, but maybe I'm a bit more free. Or I hype up the colour now because it doesn't have to match perfectly.
Yeah, you're leaving the purple.
Yeah.
So how did you go from there, those kind of paintings, onto your next series?
I needed to loosen up. So I had this series of portraits. I think that was about 40. And I kind of had a theory, if I have to make 40 portraits, I'm going to get sick of painting them realistically, and I'll start loosening up, and it worked pretty well. By the end of it, I was kind of enjoying the paint and what paint does. Sometimes you can make one gesture and it will do as much as spending 20 minutes like really refining the edge of a nose or a mouth or some lips. You could just have one nice swipe that does the same thing. That was the start. And then I had a small surgery and ended up being sent home with tramadol. And I'm a little bit of a control freak, so it was quite weird. It's like for me, it was like being in, my body's a crane and I'm operating it from behind the scenes. And the colors were pretty strange because my vision was a bit impaired, and I'm a real active relaxer and I wanted to paint still. So I would kind of sneak off into the studio for 2 hours before it got too painful and I'd get a painting out. So it kind of meant I only had 2 hours to make a painting. And because I couldn't really concentrate or see properly, I had to paint completely differently.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So the tramadol probably brought out the sort of less controlled aspect of your process, possibly.
Yeah. It definitely loosened. I still look at those pictures and think I really need to somehow get those values back without having tramadol, because I really don't like it.
Yeah. It's just getting the balance, isn't it? You don't want another injury and on medication. But that's interesting. And those portraits, and we'll put photos in your blog post on our website, creativematters.co.nz, so people can see what we're talking about. But those paintings, it almost seemed like they were slightly more minimal in some ways, weren't they? There was more space between the brush strokes.
Yeah, I think that was down to having 2 hours before I was back in crippling pain. So I was sort of, how do I make this painting work? I don't have much time, I have to, maybe I'll just use one big gesture for this part because that'll make the painting work in that corner. And then this one line is enough to show the outline of a face.
So good. And they're so, the colours that you've used are so vibrant and so unexpected, but then they're so realistic in another way.
I was surprised they worked a lot of the time. I was kind of seeing a lot of those colours more on the edges of where different, with like the edge of a face would meet, where the face would end and the wall began. There'd be like a strange colour there, and I was just trying to get that down while I was trying to paint. Yeah, it was
You're probably slightly
experience.
Hallucinating.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Which can be handy. Where were the people, what was the inspiration for these portraits? Were they people you knew?
Well, I went to a wedding about 3 days after surgery. And so it was basically that experience, the people from the wedding. Yeah. Didn't really see many other people during that time. So yeah, it was kind of cooped up for 2 months.
And were you letting people know who these people were? Was that part of your story, was that what you wanted people to know and understand, or was it just purely the inspiration at the beginning?
For me, it didn't matter for other people who they were. I just wanted them to be portraits. So something I found doing a lot of realistic paintings is they're already kind of closed because you don't have, it's an image, you can see what it is. And if you have a title, then it closes it. You can close it more because someone might just approach it and say, oh, that's that. And then they can appreciate, the skill that's gone into it. But I think for me, the skills was for me, like that challenge was for me to make it look that realistic. And I wanted people to stick around and look at the picture and think about it. So not closing it with who they were.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And then you went from the Tramadol series, which is probably not what you call that series.
I did, actually.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it wasn't very imaginative on Tramadol.
Did you feel like that experience sort of had some effect on your practice in general?
Yeah, it definitely was like I was already loosening up, but it was a bit of a a kick in the butt to go faster. And I still look at those paintings to try and egg myself on a little bit. Like, you've done it before, you can do it again. So, not that they're like the pinnacle of painting for me, but it's just a nice. Sometimes I'm giving myself a pep talk while I'm making a painting. I'm like, loosen up. You can make a mistake. You can throw it away if it doesn't work.
Yeah. And your series after that, those paintings, what did that look like?
What did I do after that?
So what year was this?
That's all over Hayes, the Tramadol year. Might have been 2018. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, I was kind of bumbling along after that, trying to figure out where to go, because I'd made these loose pictures. So I got all these boards, and I thought I'm just gonna look back to my honours year, because that was more interesting for me, making those images, finding more images about things that I'm interested in, like situations in the world or politicians, or you get these kind of crazy displays of power from countries. We've got just before all the wars kicked off, there's a lot of training on the other countries' borders, and I was really interested in those images. And so I don't know what to do with them. I had all these boards. I was just making paintings, being experimental. I probably threw more than half of them away, just to see what I could do with the paint. How do I loosen up? Maybe I'll bring in some realistic painting and then put some loose marks around it. So it was probably a couple of years of trying to figure out where I was.
And what do you think made you feel like you needed to figure that out?
Just that same question of, what does this painting do that a photo of the same thing wouldn't?
So that had been bugging you for quite some time.
Yeah, definitely. And the more I looked at other paintings, the more I started to really enjoy the paint and the medium, and I wanted to be part of it.
So is that when your paintings of politicians began?
Yeah, I think that I might have done a couple more for myself before then, but it can be a bit, you don't want people to think you're glorifying someone sometimes because I like to paint the heroes and the villains, because for some people it's the other way. They see them the other way around. So I was a little bit nervous putting them out initially.
Just for people's responses?
Yeah, for people's responses, because I don't want to make a statement about it. I just want to put them out there for people to maybe slow down and think about.
And a lot of those politician paintings have that sort of blur over the top.
Yeah.
Some of them don't. Can you tell us where that came from?
I really wanted to take away the smoothness of my marks. It was one of the ways to do it. And I also like that it's a blur, but if you're looking at it as a painter, it's actually just a big brush mark. And I like getting close and seeing those pigments kind of dragged through. So that was part of it. Just that paint, you could get an image and just smear it, and you can kind of still tell who it is. And in that way, I found it sort of opened up the image for interpretation as well.
Yeah, so interesting, isn't it? How you can sort of take the brush strokes right across the entire image, and it still is very recognizable. Yeah,
for some people, it does destroy a lot. I had to learn to hype up a lot of pigments, because when they blend, they can just turn into like a brown mess. So, yeah.
That must have been hard.
There was a learning curve for sure, yeah.
And did you have to do it while it was still wet, obviously?
Yeah.
So it was all quite a fast process.
Yeah, definitely. And then it meant that I could get looser as well, because it didn't have to be such a clean image before I blurred it.
And was the first one that you did like that, was that actually a frustration of sort of, oh, damn, it's not working, like paint over the top and then, oh my God.
I think I did it because it was a photographic reference to start off with. You know, I was painting from photos. I was like, what if it's a blurry photo? Like, what does that do to the paint if I do a blurry photo? So that's how it started. And then it kind of just snowballed from there into this is a nice way to treat paint.
I love that. And do you add actually, well, can you tell us the process around those paintings from the beginning?
Depends what I want from it. Sometimes it'll just be straight onto the canvas without a color behind it. But if I really want to remove, because the blur removes the paint as well as smears it. So if I want to remove it more, I'll put a color underneath, like a base color. So I quite like using like quite electric colors like ultramarine or ruby red, sometimes the translucent red, brown, yellow. It's the really kind of bright color to contrast the front. So when you're pulling it off, you get that line of color underneath coming through. And then sometimes I've been working back into it lately just to add a bit more paint.
And do you have paint on your brush when you do those final brush strokes, or is it just a dry brush?
The smear is a dry brush, and I have a lot of towels that I have to wipe it off, because especially if you once you go through the dark patch, when you bring it back to the start, if you do a couple of swipes, you end up just getting black lines through it. So it does destroy a lot of pictures. I end up throwing out probably, well, if I can wipe it off, I'll wipe it off, but a lot of the time I end up throwing them out if they don't work.
And how do you know if it's worked?
I'm not sure. It's just more of a feeling. Sometimes I think they haven't worked, and I go to throw them out. My wife takes them and hides them, and it works out that they did work out in the end. So I don't know. Maybe I've thrown a lot away that did work.
Maybe you need a sort of a resting station after you've painted them.
I have the cupboard of shame, which I put some things into, but not everything goes in there.
When you're thinking about the subjects that you want to paint with that politician series, obviously it's very current and sort of topical. Is there anything else that helps you decide?
I think they're just images that become ubiquitous. Maybe they're just drilling into your head a lot. A lot of the time I wake up and I'm like, I have to paint that, and go for my run and it's still there. I might leave it for a few weeks, and in my brain I'm still going, you have to paint that. You need to paint these pictures. And I'll sort of draw them up, leave them there, and then end up just doing it. It became a little bit faster over the lockdown because I was sort of doing a visual diary of what was happening. And then it became a little bit easier to paint politicians because they were all we were really seeing. Apart from our housemates and
that's true,
video calls of people. So they became a bit of a diary.
So you've got the painting of Chris Luxon and Chris Hipkins, who obviously our current and previous prime ministers. And also Chris Hipkins was very present on our TV screens, wasn't he, with the COVID action. So is there a narrative around that, on top of you wanting just to recreate an image that you were seeing and that was in your mind? Is there anything else you're saying with these works?
I don't want to say anything really. I want people to think, maybe, because I think that the medias can be quite divisive. Yeah, some people may really like one politician and dislike another, and I think people don't even talk about it anymore because it's getting kind of, you end up having arguments, especially after lockdown. I had a few friends that became conspiracy theorists, and it's funny when it's your friend because you can wind them up, but when it's not, and you see how outrageous it's becoming, I think people have become feel unsafe talking about these things. So I like having the images there. Maybe people can think about the situation instead of reacting.
I like it. And you had the one of Putin.
Yeah,
which
upside down.
Upside down, yeah, which is really interesting. So, and that one isn't blurred, is it?
A little bit, yeah, not too much.
So, why upside down?
I liked the idea that it was a reflection in the water. Like he's looking back at himself. Sort of playing on that myth of Narcissus looking at himself in the water.
I like it.
I'm still processing it, I think, in my head, that series. So, yeah, it's a way for me to think as well, to stop and think about not getting caught up in everything.
And it's quite it's a great sort of marker of time, isn't it, in a way, and what's been happening in the world.
Change, definitely. With each headline, you kind of look at it again differently. Yeah. Yeah, I find it pretty interesting. I mean, when you I look at a lot of paintings, and when you look back through the history of paintings, there's a lot of people who would get cancelled these days. You know, they were there, that was a moment in time, but they're still great paintings. And I'm sure they did a lot of nice things for their friends.
That series is kind of continuing. You're still kind of dipping in and out of that series. And then you have also another painting series. So you have had quite a lot of different series that have slightly different approaches and different processes in a way, but still feel connected. So there's the other series, which is still seems very gestural, but it's different again.
I use portraits. They almost got too easy. So I was just using them after I did that run of 40, and then we had the lockdown, and people were sending me pictures to paint because I was doing a little live video post to them. I got to the point where could just paint a little bit too easily. So I was trying to shift it up with those. I could use them to make more gestural works, or try and make it harder for myself. Basically they became exercises for painting. How do I do this one differently? How do I make it so it's not the same as the other one I did? I need to push this one, or I'll use that one to try this technique, they became kind of exercises.
So interesting that you're very mindful of your sort of development and learning, and it feels like you're always trying to push yourself. I mean, some artists would be content with feeling like they've nailed it, and then they're comfortable, and their practice becomes easier.
Yeah, maybe. I'm a bit like a magpie now. I think I see things, and I want to see how it works with the image. Like, I'm still really interested in the image, but I just want to keep playing with it. How does that work in painting now? How do I make it different, change the depth, make it look more like it's a surface? Just more interested in playing with the image and with paint. I just want to be kind of surprising myself a lot, but also I like to learn new things.
Yeah, I can see that. Where did the fascination for paint and what you can do with it come from, do you think?
I'm not sure. I think it's just making. Maybe I got bored making something realistic all the time, and I want to keep making. So I think it was just keeping me entertained. I don't know. Just a way of processing my thoughts as well.
Yeah. That's so interesting. And can you tell us or talk us through your process for this other series of paintings that's not the blurred, but the more gestural, colourful paintings?
Yeah, a lot of the time I just draw up a portrait I try and keep them the same size so that I'm not, because you treat each size differently, you know, like every time you change the scale, you probably need bigger brushes, so I try and do a series the same size so that I'm focusing on that at that time. It does change when I do big one-offs, but yeah, it's mostly just lining them up so that there's so many that I'll get bored if I do the same thing, you know. It's like forcing myself to keep thinking about how to make something new and challenge myself.
And how does this process for that series differ from the politicians, for example?
There's generally not as much underlying, like they're not somber. They're just, there's not a thought behind it almost. You know, they're just face value. They're portraits. This is paint. I'm trying to make the paint do something different. But still make it look like a person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your colour palette is quite joyful.
Yeah, hopefully. I don't know. I just have the same palette with a few guest colours.
Guest appearances.
Yeah.
Like pink. I saw a few pink brush strokes in there.
Yeah.
Which was good. Always good to have some pink, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that's so interesting. And how you're painting with oils on board all the time, or do you work on canvas as well?
I'm back to canvas most of the time now. The blur does tend to work better on board, I've found, because you don't get the canvas doesn't push away. The board, doesn't push away. The canvas does, but I've slowly been making it work on canvas. You just have to learn, the pressures of your brush and
the right brush.
Yeah, and make sure your canvas is taut, because you can hit the bar and it leaves a really annoying line.
Yeah, it would be. That would be annoying. Yeah, and how do you manage your oils, and what kind of oils do you like?
I always use the same oils. I have the schminky ones, and I have a few. I don't really use any medians except for linseed oil, and then I use stand oil sometimes if I really want to slow down the drying so I can mess around more. I've occasionally used terps, but it's pretty smelly in my studio, and I'm aware that our studio is attached to the house, so it smells the whole house out. So I do sometimes, when no one's home, use terps.
And what do you do with the terps? Just
to get the paint
who
thinner.
Aren't oil painters?
Just to get the paint thinner. Yeah, you get it. Might want it to run down, or just to be a really thin glaze.
Is terps better than linseed oil for that kind of thing?
To make it thinner, yeah. Sometimes if you have too much linseed oil in the paint, you get like I don't know, you can see it. You can see like the brown of the linseed oil when it dries, if the pigments are too thin, stretched too thin, and you want a lot of paint on there.
Have you ever worked with acrylic?
I tried, but it's not my cup of tea.
It's so interesting, isn't it? How some people are so oil and some people are so acrylic.
I mean, people can use acrylic like oils these days. There's so many mediums. I've seen people use it amazingly, but I find myself, like, I want to get those transparent layers sometimes with oil, and I can't do that with acrylic. And I like that, sometimes that really buttery texture you can get where it kind of sticks up off the canvas. You know, you can see there's a brush stroke with those little hog hair marks dragging through it. So for me, for how I work, I find it, I can do more with it. And
well.
I love the smell.
Really?
Yeah. I love going into a place and smelling fresh paint, fresh linseed oil.
Yeah. Yeah. It would have sort of good connotations.
It's a motivator too. I mean, you go to other artists' studios and you smell it and you're like, oh, I just want to be back now and painting.
That's good, isn't it? Just have someone on a rag in your bag and pull it out and get motivated.
Yeah. I've had friends and they're like, I'm struggling to paint. I'm like, just get the linseed oil out and you'll be on your way.
Better than tramadol.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, that's so interesting. And what are your favourite brushes to use?
Oh, I have so many different ones. It depends what I want to do. I have a couple of favourite hog hair ones for smearing. It really depends on the scale of the picture or what I'm trying to do. I have some really nice watercolour ones I use for oil painting, which are so smooth if you want to get like a nice realistic picture. Maybe it's my big hog hair ones, big Da Vinci brushes.
And some of your paintings look almost like you've used a palette knife.
I try not to. I have for some things, just to try it out. But it doesn't have those marks I like seeing that brush mark. It's like that primal, I've left a mark here.
Yeah, exactly. It does seem so personal.
Yeah. There's artists that I say I love their paintings that they've used palinos. But for me, when I'm making it, I'm like, oh, that's not right. You know, it's too smooth.
Yeah. But in some ways that palette knife action can be, it's a stroke from your hand as well. Yeah.
Maybe I'm just not good at it yet. Oh, maybe it's something I have to keep working on.
Or maybe it's just not your thing.
Yeah.
So interesting. I love picking your brain on this because, you know, as an artist, you have a practice that is very connected, but it's so interesting that you've got these different series that are really quite different.
Yeah. Yeah, one's for thinking, I guess, and it's like going to the gym almost. You know, I'm trying to
get fit,
get paint fit.
Yeah. So, yeah. And really sort of get to know your medium.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember one year I was at Elam and I was just struggling what to paint. I couldn't think. You know, you get the option to paint whatever you want and you sit there and you're like, I can paint whatever I want. And then there's all the things you can paint. And Peter Robinson said to me, just paint something. Like, stop overthinking it. Because, you know, you're in an academic situation where you're like, I have to make a reason why I've painted this. And I have to tell them why and I have to write about it. So you kind of stymie yourself. And he was like, just paint. And I have his voice in my head sometimes when I'm sitting there going, just paint. So the portraits was a good way. Those portraits were a good way of doing it because it's portraits. It's a kind of painting genre that's been around forever. So you don't have to overthink everything.
And do you ever imagine making landscape paintings or more abstract paintings or something that's quite different or away from portraits?
Yeah, definitely. Maybe not landscapes like the traditional landscapes. Like I've done a few that have been in media images, but you wouldn't probably know what they are. I'm not opposed to painting any genre. It just has to fit in with what I'm thinking about.
Yeah. And you have branched out slightly and you have actually gone away from portraits lately with your cloud paintings.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting, and I'd love to hear the story behind those.
They were also another bit of a challenge to myself because you paint a portrait and there's definite lines, there's definitive places where the face ends and the face starts. You know, you have a wall behind you, there's the air on the outline, but a cloud is sort of difficult to capture. It's softer, there's no hard edges, and it was partly a way for me to challenge myself to loosen up that way as well. But also, I kind of liked the metaphor that we're cloud watching. You know, we see all these, at the moment, there's a lot of bombs getting dropped, or that before, when I first started doing them, it was military training and on the borders kind of just showing each other they have the power to do things, you know, the saber rattling. And I liked the idea that we're just watching all these clouds and not knowing what's happening. It's like we're cloud watching in the media and like we actually can't do anything. So what are we making of these clouds? It's kind of like the tip of the iceberg. You see the top and you don't know what's happening underneath. So I kind of like that it was a little bit of a metaphor, but also a way to push myself to paint differently again.
And that it really is quite different. What's your process for this series?
It's sort of similar, but I've been scaling them up, and on a bigger scale, you can kind of use larger brush marks, use, you know, bigger gestures. You can work from your shoulder when they're that big as well. You know, you get that huge mark that you make, and then it's a balance on that scale to kind of make the whole picture work. Like the whole painting has to work. You might have a really nice corner and then the rest of the painting's a failure. So yeah, I actually texted one of my friends the other day. I was like, damn it, I have to make this painting work. Like this top corner is so good. I really have to, the pressure's on to make the rest of the picture come together. And it did luckily. Because I end up stripping off a lot of canvases and then restretching them. So yeah, it's nice to have one work.
Yeah. And are you taking photographs of clouds, or are you working from an image?
These are from the media. They're just lots. They're not meant to be like a specific explosion cloud, but they are, yeah. There's so many now. I just want them to be kind of like a stand-in, like almost like an archetype for what's going on.
Okay. So when you say media, do you mean you're finding images online of explosions?
Yeah. Yep.
So it's more explosions than just natural clouds in the sky?
Yeah. But then some of them are more obvious, but some of them I just want them to look like clouds so that they're a little bit more seductive as an image. And you kind of get in there and you're enjoying the paint and the cloud, and then maybe you realize that it's not just a cloud.
And there's some not very nice stuff underneath.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very interesting. So how long do you think this cloud series is going to continue?
I'll definitely keep pushing it. I've not learnt enough yet. I'm still discovering a lot with these ones, particularly with the scale.
Yeah.
Like when we were in Europe, we were seeing, there's these huge paintings and, I don't know, like lots of biblical scenes or heroic things. And you just like, how am I going to compete with that? How do I make something that works that's that big? How can I push myself to be on the same level?
Yeah, I can see it would be quite a different way of painting.
Yeah. I think the clouds will work nicely. They do have that kind of biblical, historical kind of feel to them as well.
And I wonder what the next series is going to be. I mean, it feels like you're going to always be bringing in new, slightly different approaches or different ways of thinking, but then still sort of continuing your other work. Is that the way you see it?
Yeah, I do want them to, I guess they'll intertwine with each other and maybe one day become just the same practice. I'm not sure. I'm just enjoying the journey of painting at the moment.
And how do you think your audience would feel when they come to see a Jamie Chapman painting and it's not a portrait?
I always hope that people are surprised. I don't want them to go to the same show over and over again. It's one thing, if I'm bored with the painting, maybe other people would be. Yeah. I want people to be surprised like I am, maybe.
And that can be a scary thing for an artist sometimes, can't it? You think, oh no, am I going to lose some of my fans, if I change it up too much?
Yeah.
That's something that some artists consider more than others.
Probably. You definitely... I mean, when I go to shows, I like to see different things from artists. Like, I want to see where they've pushed themselves to. I want to see, like, they did this great thing in their last show, and I can see they've carried it on to these new works, and it's quite cool to see them mine that.
Yeah. And I guess in a way it kind of makes the viewer think even more.
Yeah.
And sort of respond even more to the work because they're wondering what's been going on for the artist.
Yeah, it would be nice for people to think, what am I going to see with this show?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I hope anyway.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Yeah, it makes sense.
Hopefully they still have a feel of my painting in them. I'm not sure. I don't know if that matters. I don't know if the day of like having your brush mark is still real. Everybody has their signature brush mark that they do. I don't know if that's
necessary.
Yeah.
And then you've also got your self-portraits. You've done quite a lot of different self-portraits, and it's so great that you've done these self-portraits within these different series in a way, although there's not a cloud version of Jamie.
Not
yet. So why the self-portrait for you?
For me, self-portrait's easiest because if I look tired, I can make me look tired. I don't have to be nice. I'm not going to offend me. I can put that little bit of purple into my eye if I look like I need to go to sleep. But yeah, it's nice. I can be more playful. Yeah.
Interesting. And then, you're on hand if you need to take a photo.
Yeah. It's also like a kind of a good way to check in with where your practice is with yourself, because no one's waiting for that portrait to come out, you know. Not letting anyone down. It's just me checking in on myself.
And are you kind of commenting on something as well, or on a sort of a particular time for you, or is it just purely the process?
Some of them are just the time. It's just, just a way to check in. Some of them are a little bit different. I had that, Philip arranged the show at the QMU recently, and that was sort of me looking at my painting through, we'd just come back from Europe, and I was looking at my painting through the eyes of a Rembrandt painting I really like without making a Rembrandt painting. So that was kind of a way of dealing with coming home, seeing all these amazing paintings and trying to figure out how I fit in there, in that history.
Amazing. And it's such a lovely sort of record of your life in a way.
Yeah, maybe one day it'll be a bit reflective of my life.
Yeah, it would be a great sort of...
when you're up close, it feels like a little bit... when you're in the thick of it, you can't really see.
But it'd be something that you'll probably treasure when you're 85.
Yeah, maybe.
You're like, oh, God, look how great I looked then.
Yeah, look at all that hair.
Yeah. We looked at the beautiful self-portrait together before we started talking. That was very colourful, and I really love that piece. And you told me that it was just like, 8 centimetre?
It's 13 centimetres
13.
by, I can't remember the whole size. It's small.
It's really little, yeah, which is amazing because it really looks like a really big painting. And just with the just sort of gestural marks and the way you've painted it feels like it would be really big.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it was fun doing those little ISO portraits, like my isolation series. They were just, they had to be quick because I was videoing them and I just wanted to do those before I started painting. You know, they were just like a little warm-up, little visual diary. And so, yeah, they were more gestural. It was nice.
Beautiful. And so you had all those 40, was that the 40?
No, there was about 200 of those.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you had all the boards ready to go and you planned to do a big series?
Well, when we went into lockdown, I had all the boards and I was like, I want to use this time to just make some, loosen up, make some little paintings. I'll post them up each day as a visual diary. So the first day I think we were locked down, I was just out there cutting everything up and I just tried to make the most out of each board because I didn't know how long we were going to be locked down for. So I just, prepped all them, had them ready. And every morning I had like a nice little surface to work on.
Ready to go. Lucky you had the board before you were locked down.
I'm a bit of a hoarder. I have a lot of stuff ready just in case. So it was perfect for me.
Well, there you go. When you have a worldwide pandemic, you're ready.
I had 14 kilos of olives, so it worked out well. We had the olives the whole way through.
That's amazing. That's a lot of olives.
Yeah.
Wow. And that ISO series is very effective. I mean, it's quite linked with the similar colour in the background, isn't it?
Yeah, they had different colours. I was trying to make the skin stand out more because they weren't solid. Like, there's little gestures and there's sort of, if you could think of it as holes in where your skin would be, I guess. But I wanted that to almost be like an opposite color to push the skin tones out. So it was, I did a lot. I got a lot ready for each picture so I could just, if you had a certain skin tone, I could grab that color picture. And that way, I found that was an easy way to make a few gestures on the board without finishing a whole painting. It was enough with the color underneath. Yeah.
So you did that, all the underpainting right across the board first?
No, I tried that, and then when I cut them all up, it just splintered everywhere, so I had to do each one separately.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's really interesting.
It was a nice idea to try and get them all done at once, but...
Didn't work out that way. And then you showed that series of work after COVID.
Yep, I showed that at Fernanda. I thought it would be a quick install, but took quite a while because there's a lot of pictures.
Yeah, and it's been sort of shown as a grid.
Yeah,
so
it was
it's
in
like
a grid.
perfectly measured.
Yeah, I have a laser level, so that was, I didn't have to luckily mess around with the spirit level doing that, but it still took a while to get them all.
Yeah, it would have. 200 paintings.
Yeah.
Amazing. And were these, again, images that you found on the media?
It started off being images that were in the media, like, here's the daily update, who's there, what's happening in other countries, man, there's some weird things going on in lockdown. So it was just a visual diary. And then I started getting people sending me pictures saying, can you paint my son? We're really sad in lockdown and we watch these little videos that you're putting out. So I was like, okay, I could probably do 2 before I start doing my other paintings. So I started doing 2 a day.
Wow,
and then putting the videos
good.
up.
And that was probably very helpful for some people, just something to connect to every day.
It was nice to talk to people. Yeah, definitely. Being inside all the time, you're kind of having your only communication online or through video calling.
It was a crazy time. And then that takes us nicely onto talking about your side hustle.
Hanging art.
Yeah.
I do.
Tell us about that.
I do art installation for people, and it's also quite nice for me because I love looking at art. Like, I'm always, every painting I look at, I'm pretty much thinking, what can I steal from this for my own practice? So yeah, I get to see some amazing art and generally talk to people who are quite interested in art. So it's a perfect match.
That would be amazing. So you provide a service. It's a company. People can go online.
Yeah, people can go online and find me. I'm the picture hanger.
The picture hanger.
Yeah.
And is it like a service for, it could be a private customer or commercial or?
Yep, do both. Do install for some galleries as well, their show. So yeah, I get to be the first person to see all the art that goes up.
Yeah, how amazing.
Yeah.
And you decide on how it looks.
Generally, in the galleries, the curators do, but obviously they ask whether you think that it's working or not. But generally, the curators do that in the galleries. But in people's houses, sometimes I get like carte blanche and they're like, what do you think I should do with all of these paintings? And so I walk around and try and find the best spots.
That
Especially
would be
if you've
amazing.
got like 50 paintings and you go into a new house, it can be a bit overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, you're being like a curator and a hanger.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, which would be amazing.
And finding like artists I've never seen before is quite nice. Yeah.
And looking at people's eclectic collections.
Yeah, definitely. Heaps. There's some amazing collections out there. One of my favorites, there was a couple in an apartment and they must have had 150 paintings, and their whole life had only collected emerging artists. So a lot of these artists I've never heard of, and I don't think they're probably painting anymore, but seeing all those new works was like little goldmine for me, and then making it work in their house was fun too.
Yeah, beautiful. And how do you fit that around your art practice?
I have to be really strict and book myself studio days and hanging days because it'll end up taking over otherwise. It can be pretty busy. At this time of year it's pretty busy because everybody wants all their houses looking nice for Christmas functions. But through the rest of the year, I really try and make sure I'm in the studio a lot.
That's so good. And what a smart side hustle.
Yeah, I enjoy it. Yeah, it's perfect. I enjoy it a lot. So.
And it gets you out of the studio, gets you working with people.
Get to talk to people, yeah.
Inspires you, potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, good way to see all that artwork, take all the new techniques home.
Steal ideas, not the actual artworks.
Not the artworks, no.
And how did you come around to doing that?
I was working for a framer, and I ended up wanting more time in the studio. That was getting too busy working for him. I wanted more time in the studio, so I left and started working for myself, and that meant that I could book in 2 days or 3 days, or I could do a whole week and then take 2 weeks off to paint depending on what I was working on. Like if I was working on big pictures, you kind of want more time.
And you just created the company and started advertising?
Yep. And then most of it's word of mouth now. I get some through advertising, but a lot of the time it's like someone who's older and they've got a big picture and they don't know how to put it up, or they've moved and they want someone to come and do it all. So,
so good.
Yeah.
That's a really lovely connection, I think, to your practice. And it just helps, obviously, with the money coming in. It's a bit more of a regular
Definitely.
income.
Yeah. And then I can, that's another thing, is being able to throw away paintings that don't work. Now I can make, I've got a lot of canvas, a big roll. And so I can, if a painting doesn't work, I can strip that canvas off and not have to think about it going out into the world as a picture I didn't like. Because every artist has paintings they'd like to take back.
Yeah.
So it does mean I can edit a lot more, because I'm not constantly thinking, that's my last bit of canvas. I can't.
Yeah, or I have to paint over it and you're not really loving
I never
painting
paint over it because you get the lines underneath and I don't like.
Yeah.
And sometimes with oil it's really thin so you can see it anyway. So yeah, I have to start from scratch.
Let's get into the questions, Jamie. What would you say to your younger artistic self?
I was pretty stubborn. So if I told myself what to do, I would have doubled down on that. So I probably tell myself just to keep painting and enjoy the journey.
And can you tell us about your favourite artists or artists who inspire you?
There's obviously the people around you. Like we've got a few artists that we hang out and talk about painting, and I think that's almost as I even found that at uni. I probably learned more from my studio mates than from the course. But John Oxborough, Toby Rain, Marcus Hipper, and Billy McQueen, and we can kind of steer each other around technical things or tell each other what's working and not with our practices. So that's pretty helpful. Otherwise, I have, like there's the classics, Goya, Velasquez, Courbet, the kind of old school guys. And then the newer artists like Gerhard Richter and Vija Salmons, I looked at a lot during my study because they were dealing with the photograph and painting, and kind of just ways of looking at image through them was quite helpful. I've sort of moved away from them a little bit, but they're still kind of those early heroes that I had. Now I look a lot more about how people deal with making an image. So it's not so much, it wouldn't look anything like my practice, if you know what I mean. It's not the same. You wouldn't look at them and think, oh yeah, I can see Jamie looks at that person. So we recently came across Nicole Eiserman's show in Munich, and I just loved what she did with paint. Like she just used paint differently on there was like so many different paint techniques in one image, but she was obviously just like this. She had the writing, it said bar, and she just squeezed bar out of a tube. So it was like this quite thick. It was amazing. Just nice to see it not taken so seriously in a way, and all those techniques come past. Then I really like Marlene Dumas and Dana Schultz. They both deal with paint quite differently. Jennifer Paczynski, she's like a East Bay area kind of old painter. It's quite loose paint. So I generally look at people now whose paintings are looser and more free than mine. It's like aspirational paintings. Yeah.
Good list. And what would you say is your biggest challenge as an artist?
I'm pretty bad at writing. So like applying for shows and putting myself out there like that, I find is probably the hardest thing for me, because I just like to be in my studio making. So taking time out to do those things, I find probably the hardest. Yeah. It's one of the things I really enjoyed also about when we finished Elam, you have a group of painters around you and everybody really wants shows. So everybody puts in to like make a group show somewhere, and you're motivating each other to do it. So it's not as
you're not so alone.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, community of artists is so important.
Yeah, you can receive the rejection together if you don't get it.
Yeah, exactly. And why do you think you make the work you make?
More just for myself, really. I just, it's like a scratching an itch. Yeah, have to do it or else it sits in the back of my head telling me to do it until it's done.
Wow, that's a very inspirational story, Jamie. It's so nice to have met you, and lovely that you are friends with Toby and Marcus, who have also been on the podcast. Yeah. And, I just think the way that you think and the way that you work and the development of your practice is quite unique and really special and really interesting for us to hear about. So
thank
you so much for coming and for sharing your journey.
Thanks for having me out here.